physical or digital?
Believe it or not, this is one of the few things I'm going digital on.
Yeah. Everyone's like, man, I'm having a hard time finding Octopath Traveler. I went to a GameStop. I initially got mine from Amazon, but I was like, I don't know, something happened with my Prime where, like I had to, like someone was defrauding me with my credit card, so I had to switch it off. So it didn't go through my normal credit card; it went through another one. So they canceled it and had to upload the thing. So I didn't get it for like the $10 off. Yeah, the $12 off. Instead, I paid like
the full.
So I was kind of pissed off. Plus shipping, I was kind of pissed off about that. So I basically, and by the time I canceled my order, it was already like shipped. So it's nothing I can really do. So I returned that copy, and then I just went and traded in because someone sent me a Captain Toad, and I already have that game for the Wii U. So I traded in Captain Toad, and so basically I wound up paying like $48 either way. But that's neither here nor there. Let's have everyone introduce themselves before we get further into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gamers of all viewers of all ages, I'm Joe Lemon Star, the Gaming Mage, and welcome to the Sci-Fi Power Hour. And of course, you got our other people.
And this is Pedophile from Video Game Facts. Sorry, I wasn't at Dr. Feelgood's GAL podcast because I forgot to mention I was at the Comic-Con. I was gonna go at the Comic-Con this Thursday.
Man, whatever works for you.
I didn't know.
I would love to go to Comic-Con, but it's not near me. Like there's the New York Comic-Con, but I'm not driving or flying or taking the train all the way up to New York just for a Comic-Con. And if I wouldn't do that for the New York Comic-Con, sure as hell well I'm not doing the San Diego one. I've gone to PAX. I have gone to PAX, and it's fun. But that's neither here nor there. Plus, they have like a comic convention at the at the convention center in Washington D.C. that's kind of near me, so I get my little taste of Comic-Con. But that's neither here nor there. Since you're here, Pinky Don, tell us about Comic-Con.
Oh, it was pretty enjoyable, and it was much more so than last year.
Really? Why?
Oh, let's see. There was more JoJo merchandise this time around, and I was pleasantly surprised with all the different fan-made Jurassic Park merchandise that was being sold, especially some dinosaur plush toys cosplaying as the main human characters, like a T-Rex, the T-Rex dressed up as Jeff Goldblum.
That's just kind of weird.
What?
Yeah, that's kind of weird to me. I'm sorry. That's just weird. But then again, the few conventions I've gone to where people did cosplay and dressed up, it tends to fall into one of like three categories. People in cosplay where you immediately know who they're supposed to be, right?
The weird characters that you don't know in the entire world who they are.
Yeah, the weird characters that are obscure, but they still are kind of faithful to that character because then they show you a picture of the character and it's like, oh shit, that was really on spot on. And then the people who didn't have enough money to put into their costume and the shit looks ridiculous. And you know what I'm talking about. Like when I went to PAX, like they had the 501 like members of the 501 stormtroopers, and those people are really fucking dedicated. I saw the young black guy who has the Darth Vader outfit with the voice changer, who's like desperately trying to get that shit down pat. I saw a guy do a really good version of Apocalypse from the X-Men TV show, the animated X-Men TV show. And I asked him how much money that he spent to make that costume. He's like, yeah, I spent like $3,000. And I'm like, how could you spend that much on a costume and the shit looks like Apocalypse, like from the comics, and yet Fox had millions of dollars
and
of special
did
effects
a
budget.
worse job than him.
and Apocalypse looks nothing like Apocalypse. But that's neither here nor there. Continue with your coverage.
So, and I was able to play Smash.
Smash Ultimate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate.
You save that till tomorrow?
Sure.
That would be really excellent to talk about.
All right.
And let's see, because I was surprised to find a good 5 to 6 inch Biollante action figure that I bought for myself.
Mm.
Yeah, I have a whole collection of Godzilla figures in my shelf.
So do I. I don't have the miniatures. I got the big ones. Because like, I don't know. I was, I started with the big ones, and I just wanted to continue the theme because it would have been weird to switch to miniatures. But yeah, is it ultra detailed?
Oh no, these are they're like simplified.
Okay,
they're made by Bandai.
Oh well, shit. Then never mind. But hey, man, if it makes you happy, I kind of stay away from Bandai for their models, because like Bandai kind of falls into 2 categories with their models. Like they're either really expensive and ultra detailed, or they go simplified, like with the Biollante figurine you just described. And their simplified things work with like some things, like the SD Gundam figurines. It works really well for those, but it's Bandai. They're cheap. They're cheap as fuck. I hate. Oh God, don't get me started. And their Gundam figures.
Well, I started collecting Godzilla figures from the Bandai series, and so you could say it's kind of like tradition with you collecting the larger ones.
Well, you started with the Bandai, so I mean that's the thing about collecting. Once you start with one thing, it's like you gotta kind of stick with it.
Snowballs.
Yeah, because it started because I got one of those. I got a Godzilla 85 figurine, right? It's basically the same toy that kid had in Godzilla 84 / 85, depending on which version you're talking about. And I was like, because I'm a Godzilla fan, and like from henceforth, it just kind of spiraled out of control. Like I went back and got the 70s ones and the 60s ones and the 54 one. And they're all decent sized. I mean, the only thing is whenever I have little kids come to my, friends who have little kids come to my house, I have to lock it up in the display cabinet because they think they're toys. And I'm like, these are not toys. This figurine was like.
Sadly, my nephews do that a lot.
The cheapest figurine I have is, ironically, my Godzilla 54, and that was like
$60.
No, 80.
Ooh.
Yeah, 80. But I mean, it comes with different heads, so that you can see Godzilla using his fire breath. You can see him roaring. You can see him
with his mouth closed. With his mouth
closed, with his mouth open. It's really nice. And plus it's got some articulation so you can move it around a little bit. I like it. I mean, I wouldn't play, the thing is I don't play with these. I just keep them for collection purposes. Plus I'm a Gojira fan, so
I also bought this Supergirl Kotobukiya figure.
All right.
I have it in my room as well. And also at the Jurassic Park panel, they were selling these print cards and posters of Jurassic Park crossovers with mostly Marvel and DC, with a few doses of Doctor Who.
All right.
And Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. I'm sorry, I cannot watch that show. It is too much.
They show Captain America using his shield to block the Dilophosaurus spit.
That's kind of interesting. A little weird, but also interesting.
Deadpool being carried over by a pteranodon.
So basically, Marvel crossed with
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
There's also a few. There's also a couple of Star Wars crossovers with Jurassic Park, like Darth Vader force choking a Velociraptor, and the Millennium Falcon flying over a group of Brachiosauruses.
Why not? Why not? They've already messed up Star Wars enough. Why not? Why not?
1, 2, and 3 were iffy, but they stayed in continuity. 7, 8, and apparently 9 are about to splat the bed.
And there's Harley Quinn having a pet raptor.
Okay.
A pet raptor.
Yeah.
I could see her having a pet. I mean, I would think really a hyena, or a Cheshire cat that looks like it's smiling all the time. But sure.
Doctor Strange opening portals, summoning dinosaurs.
I could see that.
And there's Marley and Dory from Finding Nemo about to get eaten by the mosasaur.
I could see that.
And Wolverine about to duke out a T-Rex.
I could also see that. I mean, hell, if you watch any of if you read any of the X-Men comics where Wolverine goes to the Lost Land, that shit could happen because the Lost Land has dinosaurs in it. And it has happened, as a matter of fact. Of course, Wolverine gets his ass kicked because in the Lost Lands, mutants' powers don't work. Even Wolverine's healing factor is severely hampered. So
he's going to be in a lot of pain.
It's like, oh god, Jesus. I mean, he's got the adamantium skeleton, but that's about it. And it's slowly killing him.
Then there's Green Arrow riding on his motorcycle with a group of raptors behind his tail.
Interesting. That sounds like that should really be Chris Pratt from Jurassic World doing that.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. What else did you see?
Let's see. Let's see. There was this one panel. There was this one Deadpool panel where it shows an animatronic Deadpool singing with animatronics Chuck E. Cheese style.
That'd be kind of creepy.
Boy. Don't want Five Nightmares, thank you.
You know, I played that game and I don't see why people say it's so scary. It doesn't really do it.
I was saying that because that's a horrible. That's a horrible
something to do with
thought.
the lore.
Even the lore doesn't really like. I'm like, oh man, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, different strokes for different folks. For example, like, you know, Saw movies don't scare me.
But they can gross you out.
Not really. Like with the Saw movies, the first time I saw a Saw movie, I was like, this is just stupid. Like I was like, none of this makes any sense. The main villain's motivations make no goddamn sense. He's like, well, I want people to appreciate their life, so I'm going to kidnap people and put them in these extreme situations, life or death. Well, not extreme, life or death situations where they have to mutilate themselves in order to prove how appreciative they are of their life. I'm like, that's ass backwards. But whatever. But then again, you show me the Thing, and I'm like, that's scary.
Yeah. And at the Star Wars panel, they had costume props from the Solo movie.
Oh god. And how'd that work out for him?
Oh, and there was also a Stan Winston panel showing props from the Stan Winston Studios for sale, including an actual Terminator 2 prop of the T800 model, costing like over $3,000.
I bet no one bought it, or maybe someone did. I don't know. People like weird stuff like that.
People like to own props, movie props.
I guess, man. I don't know. The only movie prop I would buy is some of Ray Harryhausen stuff, like the Ray Harryhausen stuff. That's about it. But continue.
And let's see what else did I see other than video game related. There's gonna be yet another season of that Avengers Assemble cartoon, and it's more focused on Black Panther at the Marvel panel.
All right. Did they talk about how they fired James Gunn?
Oh no, they haven't talked about James Gunn yet. And I mean, was that news announced that yesterday or today?
I think it happened yesterday, but I think they announced it today.
Right, so that means they didn't announce it on that Thursday.
But I mean, it's still messed up, man.
Yeah, I can see why some people will not understand his dark humor.
No, it wasn't very funny, but I mean, it was something he literally wrote about like
days ago, in a sense.
Decades
ago. Years ago, like 9 years ago.
Oof.
I'm like, that's just kind of.
Do you think the MCU will survive without him?
Yeah.
I mean, he was put in charge for Phase 4.
They'll survive.
So I guess he'll be replaced by the Russo brothers then?
Probably. I mean, the thing is that, like, I think James Gunn is actually a good director. Maybe not perfect, but, you know, better than, let me put it this way.
He could do better than what LucasArts has been doing.
Like James Gunn doesn't have to be ashamed of his work, right?
So continuing on, I've been seeing some posters of the upcoming Aquaman movie at the Comic-Con.
What?
I've been seeing some posters of the upcoming Aquaman movie.
Oh fuck. Okay, go ahead, lay it on us.
It's set to come out this year on December, and the movie poster is already stirring up some controversy because they noticed that one of the sharks is actually a stock photo that was just mirrored, so no one would notice.
I mean, this is this is Warner Brothers, and they are being really cheap right now because they do not give a. They don't care. They don't care.
That I could believe in.
So sad but true. I mean, I wish it wasn't the case, but what are you going to do? You know.
Mm-hmm. And there were some advertisements for Matt Groening's latest IP, Disenchantments.
I might watch it. I mean, he did Futurama, and that was pretty good. So, and The Simpsons for about 15 seasons was really good. So, who knows?
And I think that's about it for all the panels I went to or passed by.
All right.
So, shall we move on to something else?
Yes. I guess we can dive further into poor James Gunn. Yeah. James Gunn, if you haven't heard the news, has been fired from Marvel / Disney
I wonder
for
why.
salacious tweets. Well, tweets in bad taste. So, I mean,
Well, he asked for it, didn't he?
I'm not gonna write them up. Well, I mean, there's more to the story than you might think. How can I put this? A guy who is like, how can I put this? A right-wing demagogue, tech mogul, basically, who, like, he's basically like in the same circle as Peter Thiel, the guy who sued Gawker. Well, yeah, he sued Gawker. He basically said he wanted to take out somebody in what he perceived as the left-wing media. I don't know how James Gunn became the left-wing media, but basically wanting to get somebody on his hit list taken out. And, you know, they found some old tweets, like some 6, 7, maybe 8, 9-year-old tweets from James Gunn. Not very funny. Like, here's the thing, okay? You can say a lot of shit if the joke is funny, right? It's like blackface is not cool. And yet, you know, no one boycotted Tropic Thunder, which has Robert Downey Jr. in blackface.
Oh, I just remember that there was this one YouTube movie critic who did a blackface before.
Like I said, if you're doing something and it actually makes sense, then you can accept it, you know? Like, and not to mention that not only was Robert Downey Jr. in blackface kind of funny, it was also a satire of something else in Hollywood. Like, if you're doing something satirically or ironically, then you can get away with it. But, you know, when you can't, you can't. And in the case of Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder,
that's a stupid idea.
Well, I mean, the whole point is that he was like, basically in Tropic Thunder, every character is basically playing a satirical version of someone from Hollywood. So Ben Stiller is an action star who wants to be taken seriously, and the one time he tries to play a serious role, he gets so immersed in it that he becomes a joke, right? I mean, you can look at Eddie Murphy at that one, or you can look at Robert Downey Jr. plays the actor who is ultra method actor. Like, everything he does, he really immerses himself into it. And he's always getting Oscars, like always fucking getting Oscars for the shit. And so basically, like, the guy plays an Asian person. He learns to speak Chinese. The guy plays a monk. The guy takes vows of celibacy and, like, lives a monk life for like 2 years. Like, the guy's an ultra method actor. So he plays a black guy in this film. He literally he gets his face painted. He talks black. He walks black. Starts acting black. And so much so that the one real black guy in the thing, he's like, why are you talking like us like that? It's like, you're not black. Stop talking like that. You know. So I mean, it's a parody. Yeah, it's a parody. You know, it's a parody of Hollywood, and that's why some parts of it are kind of funny. But and it's a parody and a satire of Hollywood. And a lot of films have done that, and you kind of, you know, you let things slide. But the things that, like James Gunn, it's like he wrote shit, and it's like, this isn't even funny. It's just kind of vulgar and crude and in poor taste. Do I think he should have been fired because of it?
Iffy.
Not really, no. Maybe chastised. maybe like, we gave him a stern talking to and he had sensitivity training. That's it. I mean, literally, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that's just me. I could be wrong.
I'm currently wondering what comic book fans are thinking about James Gunn getting fired, because usually these fans tend to take a disliking towards Marvel's current direction on the comics, pandering towards the SJWs.
But I mean, I don't think the argument is Marvel pandering towards the SJWs. It's Marvel taking established characters and changing them up
for the world,
creating new characters to appeal to a diverse
group
audience. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's like this, okay? And comic book owners, I've heard them make the same argument, right? You go into the comic book store and you say, I want the Incredible Hulk, and they show it to you, and it's Amadeus Cho. Now, I like Amadeus Cho. He's considered like the Superboy genius. He's very intelligent. Like, he's like number 5 or 6 of the most intelligent people in the Marvel universe. But his thing is that he's really intelligent, and them making him into the new Hulk is like stupid, because when you think of the Incredible Hulk, you think Bruce Banner.
He's the original smart guy that can be a brute when needed.
It's like when someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, who's Spider-Man?" Peter Parker.
Peter Parker.
I know some people, Miles Morales. No, Miles Morales is Spider-Boy.
I was going to say that's because he's from another universe.
Well, I mean,
at least in some stories, as far as I know.
If he had stayed in the Ultimate Universe, he'd be Spider-Man. But they melded his universe into Peter Parker's universe. So Peter Parker is Spider-Man and he's Spider-Boy because,
I would prefer Kid Arachnid.
No, he's Spider-Boy because he's like 15, 16 years old versus Peter Parker, who's like in his 30s perpetually for the last few decades. So,
or at least
that reminds me. I do remember this controversy about Miles Morales kissing Spider-Gwen despite the huge age gap between them.
Well, I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, my point is that people don't want to be like create a new character, which is what they did with Miles Morales. They introduced. I mean, Miles Morales gave them the template to introduce a new character, because basically, in the Ultimate Universe, Ultimate Peter Parker dies, and a new Spider-Man comes out. A new kid is a young boy, is bitten by a radioactive spider, Miles Morales, and he becomes the new Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe. Then, when they got rid of the Ultimate line, they carried over Miles Morales. But I mean, that's a character who took up the mantle. It's not like, well, fuck Peter Parker. This is your new Spider-Man. Like, that's kind of and that's the issue that people have. It's not new characters, because comic books have always introduced new characters, thrown in new characters, tried to appeal to different people. It's the people, like most of the people who are new comic people are like, they saw the movies. They want the characters from the movies. In the movies, Thor isn't Jane, whatever her name is. It's Thor Odin's son. Okay, that's who and yet in the comics, you go, I want the Thor comic. It's Jane so and so. It's like, what the fuck? So I mean, like the problem is that basically, like, the Marvel Comics division got lazy, and they thought, well, since these characters are really popular in film, we can get people, situated what's going on. If they were smart, they probably would have
had new characters, or at least try to put some new concepts in.
what I was going to say is release omnibuses that give you the general background and key hit stories for these characters, and maybe like release maybe like 5 a year, like Omnibus Volume 1, Omnibus Volume 2, Omnibus Volume 3. That's like the best hits of all of these characters, so that people could get introduced to these characters and get them up to a certain point if they get all of them. And then, you know, maybe for like 20 or 30 bucks a pop, and then people can follow their favorite character, learn more about them. And then you say, okay, if you like these characters, here's some other characters that you might like, and introduce new characters and stuff like that, or introduce them organically like they did with Miles Morales in Ultimate Spider-Man. But don't just take established characters and kill them off and be like, well, Amadeus Cho is now the Incredible Hulk. Are you sure you want to do that?
Continuing on with character replacements for legacy identities, there's scripts for the Ironheart movie hits the blacklist. And
all right.
For those of you who don't know who Ironheart is, she's
Kyrie something. She's the new
Riri Williams.
Yeah, Riri Williams. She's the Black Iron Man, except she's not a man. So,
and there's speculation that we might get an Ironheart movie for the MCU, and I'm anticipating the aforementioned comic book fans on YouTube to rant about it and how the MCU could be quote unquote ruined.
I mean, I think it could work. I think it could work. Possibly. Maybe. I mean, basically, it depends on how it's written. At the end of the day, if it's written well, you can get into it. If it's not written well, then you know.
Basically, it says here that when a young African American girl loses hope in humanity, she dedicates her life with the help of Tony Stark to become a superhero, not knowing she is her own worst enemy.
So she's basically a female version of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Because Tony Stark is his own worst enemy. I mean, like I said, it just depends on what what you want, what you're doing. It depends on how it's how well it's scripted and how you tell the story. If the story is told well, then people are going to care. If the story is told poorly, then people are not going to give a shit. So that's basically how it works.
Right.
So, I mean, okay, just an aside. I'm tired of people saying SJW because it's offensive. Because the people who use that term, social justice warrior, don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And so, I mean, you can use people need to learn to use other terms to describe things for what they are, because if you look at the denotative meaning of things, like you're being offensive, they're like, someone's just a social justice warrior. So you mean someone who stands up for the rights of the disenfranchised and the oppressed, sometimes to the point of violence, or just being very dedicated to that cause is an asshole? Well, that means we need to round up everyone who made a difference in world history, like, Jesus, Martin Luther King Jr., activists, Hugo Chavez, who campaigned for labor, for workers' rights, who worked for seasonal workers, who worked in migrant work in orchards and groves and shit. They're like, they're social justice warriors. I'm like, you need to reevaluate what you're actually talking about. It's kind of annoying, but that's neither here nor there.
So moving, anything else we could say about James Gunn getting fired?
I hope he does better. I hope he finds some good work. I like his games. I mean, I like his movies. I hope that he can find. I hope I wish him well on his other endeavors because I like his movies. Not everything, but a lot of them. And you can tell that for a lot of films that he's the creative force that makes them good, not other people. Case in point, everyone's like, well, Zack Snyder made the remake for Dawn of the Dead. And I'm like, yeah, he did. But you know who co-directed that film and wrote the script? James Gunn. Because look at the shit Zack Snyder made after that. It's all pretty fucking terrible. Or divisive, if you will.
But James Gunn was also the writer for a Scooby-Doo movie.
Hey man, people gotta eat. People gotta get paid. I didn't say it was all perfect, but by and large, it's pretty good. But that's neither here nor there. Let's do some other topics. Apparently, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is doing. Joss Whedon is doing a reboot, and he wants to get a black lady to play Buffy, which would be cool, I guess.
Since this is Joss Whedon, that means the reboot's still gonna have the same level of quality as the original, right?
I guess. I'm gonna keep it real. I never liked the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show because like people forget that before Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a TV show, it was a movie starring Christy Swanson. So they're like, Sarah Michelle Gellar is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I was like, man, I don't want to see this shit. Where's Christy Swanson? So I literally didn't watch it. I was like, I don't care. That's ironic, isn't it?
That leads me to one interesting question. Who do you think would win in a fight? Van Helsing, Simon Belmont, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Helsing.
No, Simon Belmont. Because Van Helsing is an old ass man who just fights vampires. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is really acrobatic and just stakes people. But Simon Belmont has sub-weapons and a whip, which means basically Van Helsing's fucked because he's just an old guy. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, I mean, Simon Belmont's fought dudes who were very acrobatic. He just uses sub-weapons to keep her from getting close and beat the shit out of her with his whip. Unless you want to go with the
Hugh Jackman version.
With the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing, who's got guns, and then I'm still going to say Simon Belmont, but it's going to be a lot closer.
That's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot closer. But I mean, here's the thing: Simon Belmont has beaten Dracula by himself. Van Helsing in that movie barely beat Dracula. Like it was a very close thing. He needed help to do it. Whereas Simon Belmont's beaten Dracula just by himself twice. Well, technically 3 times if you include Super Castlevania. So, I mean, I think Simon Belmont's way more experienced at fighting than Van Helsing is. But that's just me. You know, I mean, why do you think the Van Helsing from that movie, that terrible, terrible movie?
Okay, I get you. I was just saying that it might be a close fight between Van Helsing and Simon Belmont.
Yeah, of course. I mean, none of us are saying that Buffy's going to win. Maybe she had Angel with her to help her out. You know? Michael Boreanaz or Spike. I'm sorry. Oh God.
We here at the Sci-Fi Power are not gonna say that we hate her per se, but it is our opinion.
I'm not impressed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I never really gave a shit about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like here's the thing. Everyone's like, man, Joss Whedon. I think he's okay. Like, I think, like, here's the thing about Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon has really good ideas, really interesting, really good ideas, but they never get, like, aside from Buffy the Vampire Slayer that was done to death, his really good ideas either get twisted by corporate machinations or they never get to run their full course. Like, Firefly was a really good show, and it was taken before its time.
And I also hear that his original script for Alien Resurrection was due to executive meddling.
Yeah, his original script is actually pretty good. It's not great. The movie still wouldn't have been great, but it's actually pretty good.
It would have been a lot better without the interruption of corporate greed.
Well, it's Fox and they're assholes, so. But yeah, I mean that's the kind of the flaw with Joss Whedon. Like Joss Whedon, like if Joss Whedon is good for making popcorn flicks. But his really deep, heady stuff is like it takes like it doesn't really reach a large enough audience, so it never really gets to take off. Like in order to finish Firefly, they fucking did a Firefly movie and killed the pilot. I'm like, what? Jesus Christ. Whatever. Got some other news here, sci-fi related. Yeah, people thought.
Juicy details.
Yeah. So now that Comcast has ceased its pursuit of Fox, Disney's all but assured in buying all that stuff. So now that I mean, pretty much Disney's probably going to be able to pull this off. Okay.
And this is also terrible timing now that James Gunn is fired because he's no longer able to use the cosmetic Marvel characters that were under Fox's.
Not necessarily. They can just get somebody else to direct it. I mean, there's a lot of directors who could work for Marvel. So, so with that being said, here's my question. Okay. Erasing all the mediocre, bad movies from Fox starring the X-Men, what do you think Marvel could do right with the X-Men moving forward?
Create a TV show a la the Netflix series like Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones.
Maybe a reboot of the X-Men school, or at least have it focus on one character at a time in a series by series kind of thing. Though that's a bit of a small ball idea.
I would like to see them do. I mean, if they did a TV series, I would want it to be like 10 or 11 episodes on Netflix or their new streaming service. And I would like them, instead of to worship at the altar of Wolverine, I would like them to actually show the real leader of the X-Men, who is Cyclops, Scott Summers. Because I mean, they did Scott Summers wrong in those X-Men movies. They made him look like a bitch, which is not cool because I mean Cyclops is badass as fuck. I mean he killed Professor Xavier. I mean people didn't like that, but I mean he's beating the shit out of Wolverine with none of his powers, just tactical ability and fighting skills. He's led the X-Men in multiple occasions where they've been triumphant. I mean he's badass as fuck, and yet in the Fox movies, he's looked like a bitch. So why don't, for once, we get a Cyclops who's just badass? Or they could do a show about the Morlocks, who are mutants who are deformed and hide in the sewers. That'd be cool. Or even better, you could get some of that Disney animation money and do a semi-dark, gritty / realistic X-Men cartoon, kind of like we had back in the day with the X-Men TV show.
Right. And I'm also wondering if they're going to keep the the whole allegory, civil rights allegory for the X-Men TV show.
When the X-Men first came out, it was about civil rights, and then as time went on, it kind of evolved into people who were just generally ostracized and different, people with diseases, disabilities, deformities. So, but X-Men has always been about being an allegory for people who were ostracized by the mainstream. And I think it should continue to have that message. Because, Marvel's always been, at least the comics, a lot of them have always been more socially conscious about stuff than DC to an extent. Not to the best of their ability, not like when Captain America got addicted to a super form of crack, or sorry, meth. But you know what I'm saying, like,
Yeah. Because just right now the Inhumans are stealing the X-Men's role as being allegory to people being ostracized by the mainstream.
That doesn't make sense because the Inhumans basically live in it. They're separate from the rest of humanity. Like they're not, it's maybe an allegory for social stratification based upon genetics, but not like the X-Men. At least not to me, but that's just me. I guess we can now talk about the main topic, and hopefully Joel will be back. So the main topic is, what is your favorite / the best sci-fi movie or property, and why? You have to defend it. You can't just say this is good because I fucking said so. Like there has to be an actual, reason. So go ahead.
Let's see. My favorite sci-fi IP will have to be the Godzilla series, due to the fact that its message about the dangers of nuclear power, and how we struggle to live with it, as well as the arrogance of man trying to control nature, is still effective to this day. Because Godzilla is supposed to be the living, breathing metaphor of the forces of nature itself, as well as the result of the bombing that took place during World War II.
You mean where the U.S. basically used nuclear weapons on a civilian population?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the first Gojira is a very somber film. Very somber. Like damn somber, like really dark and somber, and like, man, that's fucked up. But so I mean, here's where I'm gonna say you have to defend it. Yeah, but Godzilla turned so goofy later on. How about Godzilla versus Hedorah, or
Yeah, Godzilla versus Hedorah, well, as corny as it may be, it's supposed to have an environmental message. Because back in the 70s, when people are starting to become more conscious about pollution, about polluting the entire world, that people are starting to dedicate themselves to try to save a planet.
The environmental message of Godzilla versus Hedorah is, don't be a hippie and smoke weed and dance all night, or a giant smog monster is going to chase you down, make you fall down, and replace your body with a plastic skeleton. And I know they're supposed to be hanging out at a disco. I'm like, look, listen, I know people that were in Japan in the 70s, and they had disco music too. You couldn't license real disco music for a 70s thing. Jesus. Sucks. You fucked up. But that's just me, you know. What do I know? I'm just some guy, you know. I'm just some dude. I'm just some person. No, but I have to agree with you that Godzilla is a great sci-fi series. So what's the best Godzilla film in your opinion? Like the number one, the one that you can watch over and over and over again, and every time it's good.
Probably has to be the original 1954 classic.
Oh, really? Man, like that one's kind of a downer for me. Like I'll watch it every once in a while, but I can't watch it over and over again. It's like I watch it once and I'm like, okay, I need to watch some fun Godzilla to cleanse my palate. Because if I have to see that poor lady get immolated and her kids get immolated in fire again, I don't know. That's some hard shit to countenance. But hey, man, that's you. So for you, it's the Godzilla IP is the one that you're like, this shit is the bomb. And so what Godzilla film would you recommend for people who aren't really into Godzilla but you want to get them into it to watch?
Let's see. I will highly recommend them. I will highly recommend them to watch the original first before moving on to other Godzilla films. And before moving on to other Godzilla movies, because they tend to be follow-ups to the original. Like Godzilla 2000 and GMK.
I always found the 2000 Godzilla films to be a little more disjointed.
Yeah, they tend to be their own continuities.
Like the 90s, the 80s and 90s Godzilla was more connected.
Yeah.
But in the 70s Godzilla was more connected. 70s/60s Godzilla was more connected. But then you kind of go to like each of those 2000 Godzilla movies feels like it's its own thing. Although I have to say, GMK has one of the best opening themes I've ever heard. And it has the meanest Godzilla I've ever seen. Because, like, Godzilla does the one thing I always thought he should just do to all the monsters he fights. You knock a monster down on the ground, why don't you just use your atomic breath on the fucker while he's on the ground? Why wait for the dude to stand up? That makes no sense. I mean, you know.
And because of this, GMK went off to be one of the best Godzilla movies ever made.
That's suggestive. That's subjective. I think the 2000 films. I think the weakest Millennium Godzilla film is maybe.
It's definitely gonna be Godzilla versus Megaguirus.
Yeah, Megaguirus or Megagyrus. That one's kind of weak. I think GMK is pretty good. I actually like Godzilla 2000. I actually saw that in the movie theater.
Same here.
I like it. I actually like that one. I think it's cool. Like basically Godzilla 2000 proves that them keeping like Toho keep on making everyone keeps on making Godzilla bigger and bigger and bigger. Size doesn't matter in the Godzilla universe because he's destroyed monsters that are bigger than him all the time. Why do you keep on making Godzilla bigger? It's like that's going to make him more terrifying. No, it's going to make him move slower, dumbass. But whatever. They're going to do whatever the hell they want to do. So for me, I wish Joel was here, but
is it Star Trek?
Yes, it is Star Trek. Yes. Star Trek is my favorite sci-fi property because Star Trek, especially when it's done right, shows what humanity could be. It shows that when you bring people with diverse backgrounds and makeups and ideas together, They can contribute their individual strengths to cover other people's weaknesses, and as the unity is stronger than being separate. And it's just a really good IP, more or less. And I like it. At least I like most of it, except for its most recent incarnation, Star Trek Discovery. But aside from that, yeah, I do like Star Trek.
But to be fair, and this is for you to defend it, it can get. The series is also known for being rather slow and having some rather some cheap and corny action sequences.
Yeah, but that was mostly the original series. The original series kind of had that. And as far as it having slow storytelling, you have to remember, like, Star Trek for the longest time wasn't serialized storytelling. Each episode was its own thing. And very rarely you'd have a two-parter where shit was connected. So basically, it was like you'd sit down and you'd watch a show. It's like, what adventures is this crew going to go on today? Kind of like if you're watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers. There isn't like Power Rangers has like an overall story, but TMNT basically was just like, you're just watching what adventure are the turtles going on this episode. And that's basically how you had to treat Star Trek. Like, it's like, what adventure is Kirk and his crew going to go on this episode? What adventure is Picard and his crew going to go on? The first Star Trek that kind of had like a continuous storyline told, like an overarching storyline, was kind of Deep Space Nine. And I mean, Deep Space Nine was very different compared to previous Star Treks, but even then, it still had its standalone episodes that, you know, had a message. I actually like, my favorite Star Trek series is Deep Space Nine, just because I like the characters. I like Benjamin Sisko, first black captain in the Star Trek franchise. He's just badass. Avery Brooks, badass as fuck. You know, and had a lot of cool characters. Some of the most in-depth characters we've ever had. Like, almost every character in Deep Space Nine had a thing. In terms of movies go, if you want to get into Star Trek and you want to watch a movie, I would say watch Star Trek II Wrath of Khan. But before you watch Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, go watch Space Seed, which is kind of like the original series episode that explains what you need to know to watch Wrath of Khan. And it's like 50 minutes. And watch that. You'll find out who Khan is, what happened, why he hates Kirk. Captain Kirk. I beat you, Kirk. I beat you. And it's really good. Don't watch any of the JJ Trek films, because they're ass. Except maybe Star Trek Beyond, but don't watch that either. You'll just be disappointed. Watch Wrath of Khan and Space Seed. And if you want to watch something that's a little bit more modern,
watch The Next Generation.
Yeah, The Next Generation. Anything after the first like 6 or 7 episodes of the first season. Of the first season. Anything after that is watchable. Don't start with Enterprise, because the only time you'll like Enterprise is if you're like majorly into Star Trek and you really like the background and all the other stuff. Yeah, and the reason I already said, blah blah blah, etc. etc. Jewel, give us your sci-fi property, and you know, such and such. Jewel. Junior. Don't call me Junior.
Sorry, I thought I had the mic on for a moment.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Anyhow, for me, I was gonna say, for me, when it comes to movies, it's probably going to be obvious. Star Wars.
All right.
So, if
Now,
anything,
give us the reason why.
for me, it actually was mostly with family showing it to me when I was little, and it kind of stuck to me since it got some real interesting stuff and actually worked pretty well with lore as far as lore goes. You know, like a good story, even though it's told in space, though it is a little confusing at times when you're trying to keep up with individuals.
All right. And what would you say for people who aren't into Star Wars, haven't really been into it? What would you say to start with if they want to get into it?
Definitely do not start with 7, but I say either try to go with 1 or try to look at one of the cartoon shows in order to see what it's about while going into the middle. If you
when
want
you say
to go
1,
that way.
you mean A New Hope, right? Before they renumbered everything.
I'm going to get hated for this, but I say start with episode 1 seriously. But if you want to skip the backstory, you go to episode 4.
I gotta disagree with that one. Actually, no, I agree with you. They should start with 1. Rogue One.
I wouldn't recommend starting at episode 1 because then they'll get a bad impression about Darth Vader.
No, I'll say start with Rogue One. If you don't want to watch the prequels, start with Rogue One, then watch A New Hope, then watch Empire Strikes Back, then watch Return of the Jedi, and then
at least I was saying that you need that if you want backstory, then you have to start with 1. But
I don't think they should start with the backstory first. Just because I think a lot of people who watch Star Wars, if they watch The Phantom Menace first, you'll lose them. They'll be like, no, Jar Jar Binks, no.
Binks wasn't that bad, but I can understand the hate.
Yeah, I mean, listen. It's not that Jar Jar Binks is the worst. It is the worst character ever. But the problem is that, how can I put this? The problem isn't that he's the worst character ever. The problem is that all the other bullshit that's wrong with the prequel trilogy doesn't help when you have this really annoying character walking around. And George Lucas is just putting him into everything. It's like he's comedic relief. I'm like, no, please, Jesus. That poor dude.
So there is that Jar Jar Binks is secretly the Sith Lord.
As incompetent as
I have to say is total BS.
As incompetent as Jar Jar Binks is, do you honestly see him being a Sith Lord?
As I said,
I mean, think about it.
Yes.
I mean, disregarding the Clone Wars and like all the cartoons. When I say canon, I mean just the movies, no books, just the movies. I mean, you look at Darth Vader, he's very competent. You look at Darth Maul, he's very competent until he, gets sliced in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi. You look at Dooku, he's very competent until he gets betrayed by his master, which isn't surprising because that's what Palpatine does. You look at Sidious, he's very, very, very competent, right? Like even when he's Chancellor Palpatine, this motherfucker is moving shit behind the scenes. Do you think a dude who steps in shit and gets his tongue caught in a force field thing in a pod racer is really adept enough to be a Sith Lord?
That's because he's supposed to be the Sith equivalent of Yoda. from Empire Strikes Back, where he pretends to be a kooky old man until he shows his true power.
I don't think Sith Lords have enough wherewithal to pull that off. They tried to do that with Kreia and Knights of the Old Republic too, but there was always this feeling like this woman is very there's something she's hiding. She's very dark, very, very dark. And it turns out she's a Sith Lord. And like, of course, shit. She says you need to have power because Sith Lords are always talking about power. Everything is about power. Everything is always about power.
Power overwhelming.
Yeah. Not to mention, Jar Jar Binks actually does selfless things to help other people. Sith Lord never does this shit. They're selfish inherently. So that it would be cool if, kind of torpedoes that idea, but that's neither here nor there. Any other topics you guys want to bring up before we wrap things up?
Well, nothing sci-fi related at the moment.
Okay. So,
other than the fact that I did buy myself a Godzilla poster at the Comic-Con.
Is it a generic Godzilla poster? Is it the new Godzilla poster?
It's a fan art poster of the 90s version of Godzilla.
Oh yeah. I've always been a fan of the 90s version of Godzilla. Especially, I recently got my hands on a burning Godzilla figurine that you can actually. It's got you can put a power cell in it, and it glows, and the way the LEDs come on, it looks like burning Godzilla from Godzilla versus Destroya. So he's the glow kind of it intensifies and then lessens, intensifies and lessens, like it's breathing. It's pretty badass. That's my favorite 90s Godzilla film. Godzilla versus Destroya.
Make it more immersive by letting it steep.
No, there is a model that does that, but it's $500 and it's only made in Japan. So after you import it, it's $650. Well,
Yeah.
Not $650, like $589. But I mean, I don't need steaming, burning Godzilla. Dun 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 dun. Oh, here's something. Did you see the trailer for the new Godzilla film from Legendary?
No, I'm waiting. Waiting until I go to theaters where it comes out.
All right. Well, my only thing is that I hope that in this film they Legendary splurges so that they can put some Akira Ifukube music in there, because that generic action movie B that they had in the last Godzilla film was just not doing it for me.
It was supposed to replicate Akira's style,
and it failed miserably. It sucked. It really did. It was pretty bad. Because I mean, just literally I don't know. For some reason, if I'm watching a Godzilla film, I need to hear epic music. And unfortunately, even the '98 Godzilla film,
The music was iffy?
Godzilla music. No, the music for Godzilla, the
1998 version.
Yeah, the movie is.
But that one's theme song was just a cover of.
Yeah, it was literally Puff Daddy doing a sample of Kashmir from the Blue Oyster Cult.
No,
Except he did Come With Me. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Led Zeppelin. No, I think.
Yeah.
Well, whoever does Kashmir, I think it.
Yeah, Kashmir was played by Led Zeppelin.
Okay, fine then. Led Zeppelin. It's Puff Daddy doing a sample of Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. But hey, man, it's a cool song. It's a cool song. I mean, is it as good as Akira Ifukube's Godzilla March? Hell no. But I mean, it's the Godzilla March. The only the only song more iconic than the Godzilla march is the military march in Godzilla films, where the military comes out, or I should say, the model vehicles that Toho makes that are inevitably, this heroic music. They go just to get their asses handed to them and killed.
Those toy soldiers are going to get stomped.
Basically, yeah. I mean, you hear this iconic dun 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 dun. It's like, why are you guys all this fanfare? They're just gonna get their ass kicked. I mean,
I think it's to at least say that they got high morale. Wait until they beat Godzilla, though.
If I was a Japanese defense force person and they said it's Godzilla, I'm like, fuck it, nope. You're gonna be court-martialed for desertion. Yeah, but my ass will be alive. look, I'll take desertion over getting burned up and killed. And by the way, why do we keep on spending money on this shit? You know this isn't gonna do shit to Godzilla. It's Godzilla, man. Or sorry, it's Japanese. It's Gojira. It's Gojira. Gojira. It's Mecha King Gojira. Oh no, it's Ghidorah. Or Mecha King Ghidorah. Which looks really badass, but actually isn't. Like the most badass good Ghidorah I've seen is Ghidorah in Final Wars, Kaiser Ghidorah. Now that was a badass version of Ghidorah. He dies a little too quickly, but whatever. AKA Monster X. Anyway, that's the end of this podcast. Guys, you want to pimp out any of your content?
Right. This is Pedophile, and I just posted my article about my experience at the Comic-Con. I have it at Video Game Facts if you want to look it up. That'll be all.
And
Jewel?
For me, it's been a fun podcast, and if anything, I'm hopefully able to get to introduce more stuff into the mix when we get back to the BS busting.
Yes, and a wonderful segue. Thank you for tossing me that pass. Yes, so tomorrow we will be having BS Busters at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will be talking about some very pressing issues, mostly issues that involve video games, but we're also going to be giving tips and tricks for Octopath Traveler. And believe me, I know what I'm talking about because I have put, unlike that guy on Kotaku who said he beat the entire game in 36 hours, I don't know how he did that because I'm 45 hours into the game, a little bit over 45 hours, and I've only completed like 3 storylines for 3 out of the 8 characters, and I haven't done all the side quests. But basically, we're going to talk about the general topics of the week, games that are coming out later on this year that we're looking forward to, and of course, tips and tricks for Octopath Traveler. So there you go. Thank you. Enjoy. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe. We are trying to grow this channel. So with that being said, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you and good night.
And hyper.